Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the NASCAR Racing 2003 series here on the channel. We hope you had a great off-season. We hope you missed us up here in the booth commentating every week with the NR series. I, as usual, joined by Jay Cook here as we are set to do the Daytona duels here tonight at Daytona International Speedway. 24 laps apiece, 20 cars per duel, top 10 get points in each duel, following along with the NASCAR rules system. Very excited to be back, and of course some big changes over the offseason with the whole sport of the Cup Series and NASCAR in general. But before we hop into that, I am joined, like I said, by Jay Cook up here in the booth. Jay, we had a nice off-season, massive changes here on the off-season to NASCAR, and here we are ready to get the duels underway. What's the excitement level right now coming back here after a 2-month hiatus?
Oh boy, I am really excited to be back. I'm happy to be doing this in our series again. It went really well last year. Had a ton of fun doing it, and I cannot wait to see how this mod does this year with the brand new car. A lot of brand new drivers and brand new teams, brand new paint schemes, obviously. And man, some of the teams did really well designing these paint schemes. Some others not so much, but there is some really nice paint schemes for this season, and I'm just really excited to see how this goes once again. Last year, it was for the most part pretty accurate, so it'll be interesting to see if it remains to be that way this year as well. But one thing you're going to notice immediately right away is this package is a whole lot slower at the plate tracks than the previous generation of Cup car. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these AI race and how they navigate these high banks of Daytona.
Absolutely, and of course, if you followed along last year, we got the Final Four relatively correct with Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, but at the end of the day, it was Eric Almirola who won our championship, which we just could not believe in. Here he is this year retiring from the NASCAR Cup Series at the conclusion of 2022. He will be in duel number 2. A lot of storylines to talk about here with new changes with the sport, new teams, roster moves, and of course the big one, the next-gen car. We are putting that on track here to debut in this series tonight for 2 times or 2 duels of 24 laps. Very excited as Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, both no strangers to being up on the front row, will lead the way here for duel number 1 as well. A part of this next gen car, 5 gears they have, and you see the numbers move forward there. And Jay, of course, the numbers move forward. A very controversial move, but like you said, when it's done right, I think it looks better than what we ever had with the numbers on the door.
I certainly agree with that. When it's done right, it can look really good. And I think, again, what helps with that is this car being a whole lot shorter. So you kind of needed that space no matter whether the fans wanted it or not. And so far, some sponsors have done a really good job with it, and teams have done a really fantastic job of making paint schemes. And I thoroughly enjoyed the number being moved forward a whole lot more than I thought I ever would. But here we go. First green flag of the 2022 season. Duel number 1 is underway.
Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin will lead the way to the start of the green flag. You will notice, like Jay was mentioning, these cars being a lot slower at plate racing than what we ever had last year with the Gen 6 combination. We expect a bit calmer races now, and especially in the Daytona 500, of course, we'll have a pack of 40 cars. You never know what to necessarily expect when that is the case here. Very excited to get this duel underway for these 24 laps as Logano on the inside leading the way already, now covering both lines of Alex Bowman just in line behind him here. Now, as Jay, we're already seeing as a part of our storylines to kind of keep touch with here throughout this night, is Alex Bowman actually to the front. But there's a new team already up here in the mix. We got the 31, Justin Haley. Colleague Racing has officially gone full-time racing with Justin Haley this year. We saw how he did in the Clash IRL. I think this is a driver and a team combination that might be something worth watching out here. Maybe even a playoff contender, and maybe even a race-winning contender this year.
Yeah, I think there was a whole lot of question marks about how this team would be coming into the Cup Series for the first time this year, running full-time with Justin Haley in that 31 car. And at least in the real life in the Clash, he showed that he had some speed. And I think that they are going to be a contending team. Colic has built themselves up recently in the Xfinity Series to be a very good team. Making the jump to the Cup Series is certainly a big change, but I think they're going to find their stride right away. Justin Haley, I think, is going to find success, and we're going to see this team immediately, I think, be competitive. I don't know if we'll see them winning races this season, if we'll see them being one of the top teams, but I think we'll certainly see them be competitive. They'll have their moments and have their flash of greatness, and potentially, like you said, be maybe a playoff contender depending on how the wins fall out this year. But there is a lot of excitement between not just Colleague, but there's a lot of excitement for a lot of brand new teams and also a lot of faces in new places.
Amongst the changes just in duel number 1, we'll of course highlight changes in duel number 2. You see the 42 of Eric Jones. That team has now expanded to a 2-car team with basically a GMS RPM kind of takeover or combination, you could call it. And now Ty Dillon is in the number 43 car. He is coming up later in duel number 2. Ross Chastain directly on the outside of that number 43 is a Trackhouse expanded car. As Chip Ganassi left the sport due to Trackhouse basically buying them out, you could say, and took over all of their resources. And now Trackhouse is a 2-car team with Daniel Suarez, Ross Chastain behind the wheel. And then in the background, of course, the big one, Brad Keselowski starts as kind of journey in ownership here in the NASCAR Cup Series now, as he co-owns Roush Fenway Keselowski, now it is called, racing, and currently just laying in the back. And then there's the Team Money team owned by Floyd Mayweather there, with Kaz Grala behind the wheel, laying a little bit low profile, along with the Canadian of Jacques Villeneuve there for Hessenberg Motorsports, a team out of Europe, actually currently laying back right now. Jay, I mean, maybe we know resources right now are pretty scarce actually coming into the start of this year in the Cup Series. If you're a brand new team, especially a very low budget team compared to the others, maybe you don't want to be running up in this pack right now like Villeneuve is, and maybe Kaz Grala, as there is that risk, of course, to get caught up in an accident, which could completely wipe you out this year of the 500, even if you make the show, because most teams are only showing up with 1 car.
And it could potentially knock you out of other races as well, not just the 500s. There's some teams that have said that their parts are so scarce that if they lose a car, they could potentially be missing races because of it. So I think the situation with that is going to be really interesting, and we're going to have to wait and see how it plays out throughout this week and on Sunday for the 500 as well, because again, you don't want to have a wrecked race car and end up not being able to make other races because of that. So I hope we don't see it, but I think we might see a little bit of a repeat of the 2013 Daytona 500, but I hope we don't see that. I want to see these next gens displayed in full force, but at the same time, like I said, the teams are scarce on parts. They don't want to wind up missing races, so it'll be an interesting balance, I think, to see how the teams navigate the low parts, but also trying to race and be competitive at the same time.
Joey Logano currently still out in front of this pack. Alex Bowman just behind. You see some 3 wide racing there. Bubba Wallace on the inside of the number 14 of Chase Briscoe. And then on the outside of him, we got the rookie of Justin Haley, who performed well, like we mentioned, in the Los Angeles Clash. We were hoping to start the season with the Clash. Didn't work out with our timing, and of course it wasn't a Clash track, so it felt a little bit odd to do it anywhere else. But like I said, really timing is what kind of held us back from doing that here. But we're back underway this season with the Daytona Duels. Like we said, we are very, very excited here to get this next-gen car underway. And Jay, I mean, of course, the plate racing isn't the best opportunity to get to see what this next-gen car is going to be capable of on the racetrack when you're in a field of 40 cars. But of course, it's still going to be a spectacle to watch. But what do you think is going to be the vibe with these cars here when we go to a mile and a half? Do you think these cars are going to be a lot harder to drive, kind of like we've seen in testing? Could that lead to maybe more spread-out racing, do you think? Or what's your guess? I mean, it's so hard to predict, but if you had to take a wild shot at it, what would you expect at a normal mile and a half circuit with these kind of cars here compared to what we've had in the past?
Well, I certainly think the easy thing to predict with these cars is that they're going to be a lot harder to drive than we've had in previous years, and potentially even with the whole time that we had in the entirety of Gen 6. These cars look like extremely hard to drive. Now, obviously, too, in testing, these guys are still just getting used to it. You know, nobody is extremely familiar with this car yet, so maybe halfway through the season we'll see those handling issues go out the window once they get more and more used to it and get into more races with it. But it certainly looks like this car is very twitchy. It looks like it is very hard to drive, and I think that is going to create potentially more racing like we had seen and we wanted to see before, where a mistake could really cost a driver, but not so much in momentum, just cost the driver in the fact that they lose the handling of their car. And also, I think that we'll also, maybe see some more spread out racing again, but it'll be easier to pass, I think, is the big thing. That's the big deal that I've seen so far, is that passing is going to be so much easier than it was before. It's not going to be all about just getting stuck behind that big bubble because of the giant spoiler and all that kind of stuff. I think this car is going to provide much better racing than we had in the previous years. But still, once again, everybody's still got to get used to this car.
Only 20 cars per duel here tonight, 40 total, which means we have no go or go homers. Now today, as we're recording this, it was officially finally announced that the New York racing team is going to be bringing Greg Biffle into the Daytona 500 entry list. So if we can find that car, we probably will throw a 41st car into the Daytona 500, simply because, well, they actually never had a chance in our series to actually race their way in. So if we have that opportunity, we will take it there. As we're now starting to see, Jay, the pack's starting to kind of amp up a little bit here. Now we're seeing 3x3x3. This is kind of what we want to see IRL, and hoping this is the product we get. But now, I mean, it's taken about 9-10 laps, but these guys starting to get a little bit antsy, starting to make some moves here. And Denny Hamlin now, he's going to have no easy task holding on, as he's going to have to cover 3 different lanes.
Getting closer to halfway in this race, and the intensity is starting to pick up. We've seen some 3 wide, we've seen some 2 wide, but we have not seen the whole pack be 3 wide, and now we are seeing it pretty much for everybody except for Denny Hamlin and Kaz Grala and Brad Keselowski there at the back of the pack. But right now, this pack is really starting to pick up with the intensity. They're starting to realize this race is, so short that they only have so much time to go make a move. And looked like Briscoe was thinking about taking it 4 wide there with Joey Logano, thought better of it, and I think that's also a very smart move because, again, you don't want to wreck a car, and going 4 wide at Daytona, it is something that is very, very sketchy to do. At Talladega, sure, but here at Daytona, you really don't want to do that unnecessarily, especially in the duels.
And don't forget, points are awarded in NASCAR Cup Series now for the Daytona Duels. They started doing that a few years ago, so the top 10 do all get points. It's like a stage, basically, is how they award it. So Denny Hamlin right now looking at 10 points to start the season if he hangs on to the duel of victory here, as you got Cole Custer just behind him in that number 41 car. Jay, Cole Custer, I think a driver that Stewart Haas is probably hoping, and Cole himself is really hoping steps it up a little bit here. He picked up a win in his rookie season, but other than that, it was a really rough season. And then last season, it felt like he actually went backwards a little bit, but not only him, Stewart Haas as a whole. So maybe expanding upon that, not only Cole Custer, but I think Stewart Haas Racing in general, really hoping that this next-gen car may be a bit of a reset button, and that allows them to potentially get a little bit further up that order here, as they've been struggling over that last year or so.
Yeah, I do think that entire organization is going to look to have a rebound season this year and really get back to where they were in previous years, where we saw Harvick was was a contender for the championship for multiple years in a row. Cole Custer had a good rookie season. So I think they are going to be looking to get back to that competitive form that they had, because last year was a very off year for Stewart Haas Racing. And so they're not going to let that continue at all. They're going to make sure that they have a better year this year. And Cole Custer, of course, is, I think, their main guy they want to see have a better year, because he's in his third season now, I believe. And they need to see the better production out of him. And then obviously Chase Briscoe, too, now in his second year. That's a guy that they're really counting on, too. Kevin Harvick, we know how competitive he is, how good he is. Even in his older years, he has shown to be one of the better drivers still in this sport. So they have a really good team over there at Stewart Haas Racing. They just got to hope they have the cars figured out this year.
Kevin Harvick coming up in that second duel a little bit later on. Some big names in duel number 2 along with this duel number 1. Of course, we got Denny Hamlin here, Logano, Alex Bowman, and Brad Keselowski. Austin Cindric, the rookie in the number 2 car, but a recent Xfinity champion from a few years ago. But then in duel number 2, like I said, we got Chase Elliott, we got Kyle Larson, the defending Cup Series champion IRL, and the defending champion from our series of Eric Almirola. We'll see what he's able to put up on the board this season, as we were shocked. I remember Jay going through that whole playoffs, and Almirola, he had barely squeezed his way through different rounds of the playoffs and eventually just kind of snuck his way into the Final Four. And then we get to that Final Four race in Phoenix, and he ended up just dominating everybody pretty much at the end of that race. And I still remember, we couldn't believe that Eric Almirola had won, especially considering his run of just basically barely squeezing into every single round.
You and I couldn't believe that he had made the Final Four, much less went out there and did what he did at Phoenix and won the whole entire thing. And I think that was the one big inconsistency of our season compared to everything else. We pretty much had the entirety of the season play out almost like it did in real life, except for our champion and Eric Almirola came out of nowhere in our NR2003 series last year and won the championship in Phoenix. Did a great job of making his way to the Final Four, like you said, just barely kind of squeezing through all the rounds to make it to that point. And you did what you needed to do, won the final race and won the championship.
And there you see, now we might have 3 wide for the lead actually here and momentarily, but no, it's going to single out to 2 wide actually here, as Hamlin doing a superb job. And Denny Hamlin, of course, is no stranger to success at plate racing, and he is showing that here now, as once he took the lead, he has been out front ever since that moment. Now Bubba Wallace's employee actually there for 2311 Racing, third in line on the inside. William Byron leads at top. Jay, we've seen it calm down a little bit here now, less than 10 laps to go already in duel number one, flying by very, very quick. These guys don't have a lot of time left to make moves, and right now they don't necessarily seem very eager to make those moves.
And early on, the one thing that has stayed consistent from both the Gen 6 and now next gen is Denny Hamlin knows what he's doing at plate tracks. He's led this race for the last handful of laps, was navigating when they were 3 wide behind him, still kept the lead, and now he's out leading in front of just a single lane behind him as actually Alex Bowman goes to dive below him, hang him out a little bit. And Hamlin has no help up top, so this time around we might see Hamlin lose the lead here, but that outside lane actually staying pretty strong. He's able to actually make a run on the outside of Bowman. Now they're going to go 3 wide for the lead because Bubba decides he wants to make a run for it, and he has help with William Byron.
Hamlin might be in trouble here now as they go down towards turn one. Will Bubba get clear into the corner? Yes, he will. He is clear, and Hamlin is going backwards. So there's the commentator's curse already this season. We're just talking about Denny Hamlin doing a great job in command of this pack, and what happens? He gets taken 3 wide for the lead, and down to about 5th place he goes. Here comes Austin Cindric up the inside here in that number 2 Penske Racing Ford Mustang, sponsored by Discount Tire. Jay, what do you expect out of a guy like Cindric stepping into the shoes of Brad Keselowski, who won a Cup Series championship about a decade ago with that team, and of course has had so much success since that championship as well, with many race wins every single season? What kind of success do you think we could expect from Austin Cindric? Do you ever think he'll be able to have the same amount of a success that Keselowski's had in the last 10 years? Maybe. I personally don't think we could look at him as a championship contender quite yet, but I do think that he is capable of winning multiple races per season.
Cindric is certainly a great talent. He's a good driver, and I think that the one advantage he has this year compared to other rookies in previous years is he's coming into a brand new car just like everybody. So everybody's almost kind of like a rookie right now, and so he's coming into a brand new car like everybody else, and he's not coming into like let's say a Chase Briscoe last year where he came into his rookie season where everybody had almost 10 years on a car. So this year, everybody's trying to figure out a brand new car at the same time, and Cindric might play into his advantage a little bit. He might have more success as a rookie this season than we have seen rookies previously provide, but still a rookie year. I don't think we'll see the exact production out of him this year that Penske will want, but it'll be a learning curve for him, and I think we'll see him winning races within a few years.
We'll have to see what happens there with Austin Cindric. I expect to see him do well at of course, the road courses from his road racing background. That's where he comes from, and as well as maybe short tracks, because drivers with road racing backgrounds can really excel on short tracks when you have the heavy braking zones. And other than getting run over every other lap, he was actually doing really well at the Los Angeles Clash. So we'll have to wait and see, though, what his performance will be like here IRL. As of right now, though, runs up towards the top of 5 here as we come through to already 5 laps to go. Alex Bowman leads the way in this first and opening duel. Jay, in the background there, we got Kaz Grala. Looks like maybe they've decided to bail out from the main pack here. I mean, they're just barely holding on to that draft. But, of course, Floyd Mayweather now getting involved in NASCAR. We've seen celebrities come in with Pitbull and Trackhouse Racing, and, of course, Michael Jordan with 2311 Racing. Well, now we got this guy, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, absolute royalty in sports, and maybe even larger than both Pitbull and Michael Jordan, you could argue. I mean, as we see a 3 wide move for the lead, but still, nonetheless, another huge gain for NASCAR to have someone of Floyd Mayweather's status join the sport.
Yeah, NASCAR has suddenly, all of a sudden, the last couple of years, gotten huge names outside of the sport interested in the sport of NASCAR and owning teams, and it's a great direction, I think, the sport to be going in. Everybody can have their claims about NASCAR dying and being in a low point and all that kind of thing, and then you see the owners coming into the sport and you realize that is not true at all. And I think everybody is really excited for this new generation of car, and this is a huge opportunity for a lot of teams to jump into NASCAR, and we've seen that last year. Some new ones jumped in, and then this year more new ones have jumped in with the new car actually finally being here. And so I think the opportunity is there for a lot of teams. Some are going to start out maybe just part-time. Hopefully Floyd Mayweather's team decides they want to be full-time in the future. And I hope that we start to see a lot more teams venture into NASCAR, because there is a huge market for it right now. And certainly just not enough teams at the moment.
I think the only downside, Jay, about the Floyd Mayweather team is the car looks horrendous.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The paint scheme, I saw somebody, I can't remember if it was replying to you or if it was replying to one of the posts about it, but they described it as like a 90s styrofoam cup, and that's the best way to describe that paint scheme to me.
I don't know what a 90s styrofoam cup looks like, to be honest with you.
Exactly like that. Exactly
Okay.
like that. If you want to know what one looks like, it looks exactly like that.
All right, well then there we go. I agree with you then. As we go down into turn three, coming to 2 laps to go, and who's made their way back to the front? Well, it's Denny Hamlin. I mean, unbelievable what Denny Hamlin is always able to accomplish here on these plate tracks, and he might even bring his 2311 Racing driver Bubba Wallace with him as we come to the stripe. 2 laps remain here in duel number 1. Laps have been flying by here now as Joey Logano, he's back up into the mix as well. I mean, Jay, we have some plate racing royalty, you could call it, in this race. I mean, you got Hamlin, you got Joey Logano, you got Brad Keselowski as well. All of them have had so much success here on the plate races, but once again, I mean, Denny Hamlin showing that as of in recent memory, he is clearly the guy that you got to be looking at to control these races, as he's once again in front coming to the final lap. Even after getting pushed back, he's made his way back up there.
And 2 laps to go. That 22 of Joey Logano has found his way up towards the front right here. The second car in the outside lane at the moment, because Denny Hamlin just got put up there by William Byron once again. But Logano is going to come up here and be aggressive, and you see him already shooting to the inside, thinking about maybe going 3 wide there for Byron. White flag this time by Hamlin leads, but he has no help up top. He's got William Byron, Joey Logano, and Bubba Wallace, and Austin Cindric all hooked up on the bottom right now, and he's got no help up top.
Into turn 1 is Byron now by about half a car length with Logano in line. Bubba Wallace third in line. Hamlin's going to need that 48 to get back to him as quick as possible, but it does not quite look like it is going to happen. Now Bubba Wallace, though, is going to go 3 wide up the inside of Logano, and Bowman down into turn 3. And somehow, Jay, there's the 11. He's got a nice run down into turn 3. It might not be over yet.
That outside line so far has prevailed so far for Denny Hamlin, even without help. So if he gets a push here from Logano, he actually might be able to nudge out in front of William Byron. And so far, that's what's happening. And they're coming down to take the checkered flag in duel number 1. And Denny Hamlin's going to grab it once again. Hamlin, he's right back to his winning ways in the super speedways, even in the new car.
Denny Hamlin with the duel 1 victory. That will be 10 points awarded to Denny Hamlin here. William Byron second, Logano third, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, Christopher Bell, the number 31 of Justin Haley, and then Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon round out the top 10. 10 points for first, 1 point for 10th. Of course, it goes 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, if you might be new to the sport there, and between second and ninth. So, I mean, really back and forth racing there, Jay, in duel number 1. I mean, we saw the aggression levels pick up, we saw the aggression levels fall quite a bit, but overall, compared already to the Generation 6 Cup car on this NR2003 game, it's a pretty night and day difference. You can just see a lot calmer racing here on this next-gen car so far.
And I think the biggest thing that I noticed is that there was multiple times Denny Hamlin got left out to the top lane with no help, and he still was able to make a challenge up there and didn't really lose that much ground, which was really interesting to me to see that happen. We'll have to wait and see if that happens again in Duel 2 and on the big race on the Daytona 500 when we record that. So I think that was pretty interesting, and they probably learned that right away, that Hamlin was able to stay up top like that without any help and really able to gain ground. And that is something we have never seen before. So that was really surprising to me.
And that is going to conclude it for duel number 1 here in our debut with this next-gen car in the NR2003 series. As you can see in your top left of the screen, I'll let it quickly scroll through the car numbers in their finishing positions there from 11th through 20th, with Jacques Villeneuve all the way at the bottom of the grid. But that doesn't matter, he's still in the Daytona 500. But what Jay and I are going to do is go take a quick break, a breather. We'll be back for the start of duel number 2 momentarily here from Daytona International Speedway. Back here from Daytona International Speedway, ready to go green for the start of the second duel here from Daytona International Speedway. 20 cars have completed their first duel, with Denny Hamlin getting their first duel victory and an additional 10 points to start the season here. Now, as we're ready for another 24 laps here, once again, just 20 other cars here to make up the rest of the grid. Kevin Harvick will lead the field to the green alongside Martin Truex Jr. Jay, we saw some good racing there in stage 1, duel number 1, my bad. Here as we come into duel number 2, but once again we get a good look in this duel of some new changes again. I mean, we got the third Collie card now. That's not going to be a full-time car, but it is going to be a part-time driver with AJ Allmendinger behind the wheel of that machine. I believe Noah Gragson and Daniel Hemrick also going to be sharing the seat time with that 16 car, so it's kind of a full-time car, just a part-time split up schedule. But of course, we look a little bit further back, we see in the number 45 there, Kurt Busch, 2311 Racing has made the expansion to a two-car team. Jay, Kurt Busch, what do you expect from a guy like this? I mean, of course, closing in, obviously, on the end of his Cup Series career, but I feel like this could be a great asset to 2311 Racing with the amount of experience he has, and as well, he could be a really big beneficial help to Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, and he's also still very competitive as well. He might be entering the latter stages of his career, but he's still got a whole lot of speed. So I think that Kurt Busch is going to bring a lot to 2311. And I think we'll see that team's performance improve drastically with his help for Bubba and with his help overall with just the team in general. So I can't wait to see what Kurt Busch can do with that team. And I think he's also extremely excited. And he seems like his career has been rejuvenated a little bit. He seems to be extremely happy with that team. And it seems to me perhaps a little bit happier now than he was with Chip Ganassi.
And the pace car will be pulling off this time by on the exit of turn 4. And as they get ready to go green, we would like to let you know this video here should be going up Wednesday evening, or at least on Wednesday at some point. And we plan to live stream only one event probably this season, but we plan to live stream the Daytona 500 here on NR2003 on Friday at about 5 p.m. Eastern time, right in around that time slot. So stay tuned on the channel to watch along live for the Daytona 500 here with myself and Jay up here on the booth in the same format, just of course in the live stream format here, and we're excited to do that. We've never done that, so it'll be an interesting thing to try for both Jay and myself, and we hope of course that you guys enjoy it. Nonetheless, though, action underway here from this second duel with Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch up here in the mix. M&M's on the number 18 Camry right there, and Jay, we know that M&M's for the first time in a long time, since before I was even into the sport. I mean, before I was even born, M&M's was in NASCAR, and now at the end of 2022 they have confirmed they're going to be leaving the sport. I mean, that's a big moment, a big loss for NASCAR, of course, but at the same time you look at the other way, it also opens up a door for another brand new large sponsor to maybe come in and take the place of that 18 on M&M's car.
Yeah, longtime sponsor of NASCAR and longtime sponsor of Kyle Busch. Unfortunate to see them leaving, but like you mentioned, it is an opportunity and does open the door for a new sponsor to come into the sport, or perhaps just a new sponsor to jump up with a big superstar like Kyle Busch is and jump up into the Cup Series. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of sponsors he gets. Of course, a little bit sad to see those M&M colors go, but it'll be interesting, or it'll be nice, I think, to see some new paint schemes for that car, some new sponsorships for him, and potentially we might actually see some Rowdy Energy schemes in the Cup Series as well. And I honestly cannot wait to see a Rowdy Energy scheme on a next gen Cup car if that's what he winds up doing with his own sponsor.
That would have some great potential to look really good, I'm sure, here. As right now it's a JGR 1-2 with Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and then the defending Cup Series champion of Kyle Larson just in behind. At the back of the pack, you got some of those back markers right there. You got that number 66 of Timmy Hill in a cryptocurrency car. It'll be interesting to see if he even gets paid as they go down this back straight away. And Jay, I mean, cryptocurrency and crypto coin, whatever you want to call it. I mean, NFTs, of course, have become a large part of all of a sudden the sport, kind of out of nowhere. I mean, we saw it creeping up here and there, and then it just kind of took off in NASCAR. Everybody's getting involved with NFTs. Everybody seems to be trying to pull a crypto sponsorship, and we saw it, of course, happen with an Xfinity Series driver, and it ended up falling through. But it's crazy to see this wave of crypto sponsors, NFTs within the sport, and I feel like this is something that really could dominate the sport for at least the better half of this year, I would think.
Certainly, it would seem that way, and I mean, we've seen them pop up all over the place, from just small associate sponsors to just brand deals with the teams to full-on sponsors for the entire season or for several races, like we've seen with Landon Castle. We've seen it with Timmy Hill there. We've seen it with several different teams. We saw it with Moneyline going over to I think it was RFK, or no, who did they go over to?
But I don't remember actually.
I don't know why I can't remember, but either way, they went over to a different team as well, and they're jumping into cryptocurrency. Stewart Haas, it was either Stewart Haas or 2311 or some way. Either way, they left Penske and went to another team and brought in crypto as a part of it when they moved sponsorships. So, and crypto is just all of a sudden becoming a huge part of the sport. It's kind of exploding out of nowhere, and I don't know if it's because of there being a lack of sponsorship for some of these teams, or if it's because of crypto being absolutely everywhere now. I mean, it is everywhere now, and just teams taking advantage of it and getting the money that they're going to get paid.
And we'll see if they do get that money, as Kyle Larson is going to go up the inside of Martin Truex Jr. there. In the background, you got Tyler Reddick, Daniel Suarez just behind Ryan Blaney. Suarez in his second year with Trackhouse Racing there, as that team had a mediocre year there to debut for them, as you see Larson still side by side with Truex, and Reddick there is going to kind of get caught off guard by Kevin Harvick, who's going to slip up the inside, going to take it 3 wide for second place. Tyler Reddick in the middle. Jay, I think Reddick's a driver that really could be on the forefront this year in terms of contending for race victories. We know how much speed he's got. He's been able to constantly or consistently outperform his teammate of Austin Dillon, and he's had opportunities to go fight for wins here and there, but I really feel like this next-gen car could really play towards his advantage a little bit more, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him get his first win this year, and maybe even more than one.
And we'll have to wait and see if RCR is going to be able to match the performance with their cars that Tyler Reddick will be able to put in as a driver, because he does have a lot of talent behind that wheel. And I think that if RCR is able to provide him with good equipment, we could see him certainly be contending for races this year, contending for the playoffs definitely, and potentially maybe be a championship contender depending on the type of run he's able to go on this season. But he's certainly developing quite nicely into a great talent in this sport so far, and Tyler Reddick is going to be, I think, strong for years to come. And I mean, especially if RCR is able to develop their equipment, I think that team will be very strong. Because Austin Dillon, he's not as bad as everybody says he is. He's still a pretty good driver as well. So RCR has the potential. If they can get their equipment up, they'll be a pretty good team.
And there you see Reddick still holding his own, leading the outside lane with help from Kyle Busch and his JGR teammate of Martin Truex Jr. Harvick still on that inside. Kyle Larson leading everybody, though, as they go down through the center of turns 1 and 2. Jay, we saw Kyle Larson put up a 10-win season and, of course, en route to his first ever Cup Series championship. What a, of course, life journey he's had over the last few years of his life. But the last time we saw somebody win 10 or more races was Jimmy Johnson back in 2007, en route to his at the time would have been third Cup Series or second Cup Series championship. So I mean, 10 wins these days or more is pretty much unheard of. It's unbelievable what kind of clinic and campaign Kyle Larson went on in 2020, especially with the playoff format and just how hard wins are to get nowadays. It's really just unbelievable what Kyle Larson was able to do.
And Larson only had a couple of risky races last year in the playoffs, and other than that, he had a pretty much flawless season last year. And I mean, dominated everything there was to dominate, won everything there was to win between NASCAR and other forms of motorsport. I mean, Kyle Larson just absolutely had himself a year last year, and I think he's going to be looking to come in this year and continue that kind of domination, continue that success that he had last year. And that whole Hendrick team as well, they're going to be looking to perform a little bit better than they did last season. Obviously, Chase Elliott, he's going to be looking to perform a lot better than he did last year, not able to find a win on what the sport goes to most, the oval. So Kyle Larson, I think, is once again going to be a huge guy to look at this year, but that whole Hendrick group in general is, I think, going to be a lot more competitive this season.
Well, what do you think he's kind of coming into this year? Elliott was something to prove. I mean, you look at last year. I mean, obviously only one on a road course, 2 wins. One was a rain shortened one that he was in position to not win if it had went green to the finish, and it actually would have went to Kyle Larson, which would have been an 11th win on the year. But do you think he's coming here with something to prove, because he wasn't as well able to beat Kyle Larson, really? I mean, he comes into 2020 being known as the top guy at Hendrick Motorsports, and now everybody looks at Kyle Larson, and Elliott's just kind of in the background there. Of course, we know he's strong, but clearly last year just didn't really have much for Kyle Larson. What do you think's his kind of mindset going into this 2022 season?
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's feeling like he has something to prove this season, especially with the way Chase Elliott is. He is his own worst enemy. He beats himself up over anything, and he knows when he's not competitive, and he wants to strive to be the most competitive he can be. And also, I'm sure, like you mentioned there with Kyle Larson, now being talked about as a top dog at Hendrick, I'm sure he doesn't like that either. So I think he's going to look to come out this year and really compete with Larson and really just make sure that he is once again touted as that top guy at Hendrick. But, you know, we really haven't ever seen the teammate kind of rivalries like we have in F1 all the time. I think Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson could really be the first one we've seen in a while, aside from maybe Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson several years ago. And you know, once again, Hendrick proving that they know how to find their drivers, and Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, 2 really extremely talented drivers. They're not going to want to hand over anything to each other at all.
And of course, the last two champions of the sport that we're talking about, with Elliott in 2020 and Kyle Larson in 2021 here, as we'll see who comes out on top between those two and just in general in the sport of NASCAR here in the Cup Series in 2022. Now, of course, we still don't really know where everybody's going to be, and that's the thing with the ratings and stuff. Jay took care of all of the ratings, but it was challenging to do it, Jay, for you, because obviously we still have no idea where these cars are going to stack up against each other. I mean, we'll have somewhat of an idea Wednesday night in qualifying for the Daytona 500, but even then, sometimes there's the midfield team that's actually able to, for example, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was able to put it on pole a few years ago, so there's still that possibility of, even with qualifying at Daytona, we're still not going to have a great idea of where everybody stacks up until really we get to a mile and a half, I would think, and in some short tracks as well.
Yeah, I just kind of did the ratings based off of what I think would happen. And last year, I kind of did it off of an organization-based thing. And this year, with it being a new car and everything, I kind of did it based off of what I think the driver is going to perform. And we'll certainly go and adjust those ratings as the year goes on. If I see anything drastically different in our series from the way real life is, obviously, it's going to take us 3-4 races to really realize that we're not going to really know anything after the Daytona 500 or after this week at all. But once we get to those first couple of races at Auto Club, Phoenix, Las Vegas, then we'll really start to learn who is the who of this new car and who doesn't have it together at all. And we'll make those adjustments. But I'm really excited to see this season, both in NR and real life. I am extremely excited for this car. I didn't have a whole lot of excitement for it. Then NASCAR made the changes. I saw testing. I see the team changes, the new drivers, new teams, and I'm actually extremely excited for it now.
Coming to just 10 laps to go here in this second duel. Been a very calm night here from Daytona. AJ Allmendinger currently out in front. And we were talking about, of course, these upcoming races. I mean, we got the Daytona 500, which we, like we said, will be live streaming here on the channel, aiming for Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But then after that, we go to California, where we will be headed to Auto Club. And that's going to be an interesting race in itself. Jay, we didn't have the luxury of going to Auto Club last year with this NR2003 series, as due to the pandemic and stuff, Auto Club found itself off of the schedule. So now we finally get to go there, and I'm curious to see, I mean, if we're going to have maybe pack racing with this car there or not. In IRL, we wouldn't expect that, but with this mod, I mean, it's kind of tough to tell here. It kind of feels like real life. With this mod, I don't know what to expect, actually, when we take it to a different track. So we could have a really big pack race at Auto Club, or we could have a very spread out, boring race. I mean, it's really hard to predict.
It is very hard to predict, like you said, both in real life and in our series. It's going to be really interesting to watch and see how things evolve over the year in both real life and our series once again. So I'm kind of excited to get us to go to Auto Club. I think Michigan last year was more of a pack race, so I think we'll probably see that same thing again at Auto Club. But then again, with this brand new mod, this brand new car, who knows what could have been a pack race that last year could be an absolute snorefest this year with single file racing and just all kinds of difference. So I already do not know what to expect. I mean, we're already seeing the play package look a whole lot different this year from last year. Last year, the duels, I mean, the speeds were certainly higher, but last year the duels were certainly a lot more intense than this. And so far, this second duel has been less intense than the first one. We had Ryan Blaney and AJ Allmendinger actually breaking out in a little bit of a tandem by themselves last lap. Now they got caught again by the pack, and we're already seeing this racing look a whole lot different than the previous year. So it's going to take us a bit, I think, to learn the kind of way this car is going to be and what to expect from it.
Absolutely. It kind of not the most intense and exciting package is what we've had previously. Of course, when we still throw 40 cars on this track here in a few more days, it's going to be interesting to see how it differs and whatnot. But I mean, looking as well at that schedule here, we just talked about Auto Club coming up for the second race of the season. Then we go to Las Vegas, we go to Phoenix, we go to Atlanta very early on in the year, March 20th. That, of course, is a big change to the sport of NASCAR because they've completely reconfigured the Atlanta Motor Speedway NJ in a very controversial fashion amongst the drivers, amongst the fans as well, as they've basically, their goal is to turn Atlanta Motor Speedway into a plate race, and they are going to as well make sure to use this package we're seeing here today. They're going to have the big spoiler on the car and basically the plate package at Atlanta. I think that right there, I mean, obviously, once again, we don't know what to expect, but I almost feel like plate racing there, it's a recipe for disaster compared to Daytona Talladega.
I was very skeptical of the new Atlanta repave from the start, and I think I'm even more skeptical of it now because NASCAR seemed like they had this plan all along of allowing these or keeping these cars kind of the same way we've had high downforce, lower horsepower, and then they go to testing and they don't like what they see, so they decide to change up the car. But Atlanta has already decided to repave to basically make a plate track, so now NASCAR is pretty much forced to use our plate packet or their plate package at Atlanta. And if there was any chance of it not being a plate race before or a pack race before, I think it is certainly going to be one now. And we just added on a third plate type race to the season. So, or actually third and or sorry, not third, a third track, not a third race. It'll be a fifth and sixth race. So it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing or not, but for Atlanta, I feel like they are probably upset that NASCAR did that. They're probably also going to be kicking themselves in the butt because I don't think it's going to work like they want to, and I think that I don't want to say too much without seeing it, but I'm just not that excited about the repave, and I don't think it's going to be that great for the cars to drive on.
And I mean, as well, I mean, as we're coming up to 4 laps to go, Allmendinger, Blaney still P1, P2 side by side. I mean, you look at it compared to other plate tracks, if it ends up producing the pack racing, which they're trying to do, both NASCAR and Atlanta Motor Speedway now themselves working hard together to try and produce pack racing at Atlanta. I mean, Jay, of course, it's a completely different style of track at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and we compare the corners here from Daytona, Talladega. They're long and sweeping, and they take forever. And Atlanta, it's a lot sharper turns compared to what we have at a Daytona and Talladega, and I just can't see how 3 wide could potentially work in that style of corner. And I feel like I said, that's going to be a recipe for a disaster if they do end up getting their pack race. I can see it's cleaning out a lot of cars, and I don't really feel like it would take that long to do so.
The thing that is also really interesting about it is the corners are not so wide, but the straightaways are massive. I mean, the back. I don't know if we've seen a picture of the back straightaway yet, but the front straightaway, you could do 4 or 5 wide on that front straightaway, and then you go into the corners, and you got to be down to 3, maybe 2 wide to make the corners. So, Atlanta looks like it's going to be a really interesting experiment. And it looks like it might be a really expensive experiment if it fails because it'll cost them possibly attendance. It might cost them maybe another repave if NASCAR is like, you either repay this or we take you off the schedule. I don't know, but I don't think this experiment is going to work very well without NASCAR or Atlanta having to do some major tweaks to it. And it just does not look like it's going to mesh together with these cars. But who knows? Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll be amazing. I don't know, but on paper it does not look like it's going to be good.
And of course, with the part situation right now in the Cup Series, I'm sure teams are terrified of the Daytona 500, and I'm sure they can't be looking forward to Atlanta because it's still very early on in the year, and we're not going to just eliminate the shortage, I'm sure, within a month. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, 2 laps to go here in Daytona. Jay, we're about to see our first 4-wide action here of the whole night, and it could get a little bit sketchy here. Oh, my goodness. There we go. They save it. Oh, my goodness. What a save with the 17.
That's not something we've seen the AI do very much, and my goodness, I thought they were going to sail it back up into the pack there and turn right, but luckily they did not. We've rarely seen the AI be able to make saves like that, and luckily those two did it right there because you were just mentioning seconds before about the parts, and we almost had 2 of them get cleaned out right there, but it didn't happen. And we're coming around to grab the white flag this time. Ryan Blaney and AJ Allmendinger, they have been in absolute control of this race so far.
A completely different race from duel number 1. We really haven't seen much difference up front. Blaney leads the way. Kyle Larson wants one last shot at it. Those they come through turn 1 and 2. So that right there at least proved to Jay and myself that they can get a little bit chaotic when they need to. So it keeps our interest peaked for that 500 to see what is going to happen there. But Blaney leads the way down the back straightaway. It was Denny Hamlin winning the first duel. Ryan Blaney, who's been as well proven to be very strong at these plate races, looks like he's going to live up to that hype as well as he exits turn 4. Jay, not even a contest as he leads the way.
Ryan Blaney looks like he's going to get his first win of 2022 in duel number 2. There we go. It goes to Ryan Blaney. So he is already gotten a checkered flag this season, 10 points to his name, and we saw 3 wide there for second place between AJ Allmendinger, Kevin Harvick, and Kyle Larson. So this package proving that even though it's not as fast, it can still definitely get 3 wide, still 4 wide, and obviously, like you said there, with the almost wreck we had, it can still get intense. And I with just these 2 20-car races, I think that they already showed us that, A, this package can provide 2 different types of racing because we saw it be very intense in Duel 1, not so intense in Duel 2. But I also think that it shows us that if you have more cars together, it is really going to ramp up the intensity, be able to create situations where you're 3, 4 wide. And I think the Daytona 500 on Friday for us is going to be a pretty wild race.
Absolutely here, and we're very excited for that. Here, as you see the top 10 on your screen, Blaney, the 16 of Allmendinger, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Reddick, the 43, 45, 19, 47, and 18, all as well round out the top 10. So Duel 1 went to Denny Hamlin there, 10 points for him. Ryan Blaney's going to get 10 points as well here. Of course, not official race wins that will count in their statistics other than maybe Daytona Duel wins, but nonetheless, 10 crucial points. And I mean, Jay as well, as we usually don't really think about it very much at the beginning of the year, and we usually forget about it at the end of the regular season, but these dual points right here could be crucial for some of these teams that find themselves fighting for the final few spots in the playoffs.
Yeah, they certainly could be. The points are so important now because we've seen the wins start to kind of pick up a little bit to where you almost have 16 or more drivers in a season, and we've also seen it just be really crucial for making the playoffs in general. So I think you want to get every single point possible. And for Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin, they just did that already, getting 10 points, the maximum amount of points possible so far in their races in their season, and already starting off on a good note with the next gen cars, but. I mean, just again with the part shortage as well, you want to get as many points as you can too, because you never know if you're a team with less resources. You never know when you might run into a situation where you don't have a certain part or you don't have a car to make a race. So this season is going to be, I think, interesting on all sorts of levels, not just the racing side of it. There's a whole lot of things that are going to happen this season, and it's going to be interesting to watch it play out both in real life and our NR 2003 series.
Absolutely, and once again, we look forward to the Daytona 500. That really does wrap it up for us here in the Daytona Duels. So once again, if you want to watch the Daytona 500 NR 2003 series live here on the channel, we will be live this Friday, a few days time, at approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very excited for that one there, as we will be aiming to do probably a bit longer race with the Daytona 500 than we do with the other races, but we'll aim for right around that 50% range, actually, maybe 60%, somewhere in around there. So stay tuned on that. But nonetheless, I mean, Jay, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here and looking into the Daytona 500 here in a couple of days?
Just excited for it. I'm excited for the season, and I'm also excited to see how live streaming it goes, because that's something obviously we have not done before. We're only in our second year of doing this, and it'll be our first time live streaming it, and it's going to be really fun, I think, to try and do and try and experiment with, and I hope that everybody watching enjoys it, and I hope that we also enjoy it ourselves. But I'm just looking forward to this season, both in real life and in NR 2003, and I'm also really curious to see if it kind of parodies the real life again, like we had last year with this NR series. So just again, very excited for it.
Absolutely. I pretty much can't say anything else because I agree with everything he said there. So that does it for us here tonight in night number 1 of the return of our NR 2003 series. If you guys enjoyed, of course, you know what to do. We'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day, evening, wherever you are in the world, to watch this episode alongside with us here in the booth. It has been myself, Gary Owen, and Jay Cook up here in the booth. That does it for us. We will see you guys live at Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Daytona 500 here on NR 2003. Stay healthy, stay safe. We will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.